Where the consumer chooses to buy you will keep changing as new channels develop. Now, if you are not available where the consumer wants to pick you up, you've not done your job. There was a laundry brand called Nirma.
Ah, of course.
We were seriously panicked over them, introduced brands like Wheel, etc. Maybe a decade later or 15 years later, there was a brand which was launched in UP by a small entrepreneur
Gadi,
called
right?
Gadi.
Yeah.
Wiped out Nirma. I believe that to successfully build a brand, there are 4 or 5 necessary conditions. Steve Jobs actually said, no, you can't ask these consumers. You got to figure out where you want to take them.
Talk a little bit about what it meant to build Gillette, which does so beautifully in the razor space, and we learn so much from them. Height is fine, no, for this? Check. Are we ready to go? This was a really special episode for me. I know Shantanu, of course, because of the work we do at Advent. He's obviously known for being the CEO of Procter Gamble in India, which also owns the brand Gillette. And in this episode, we kind of covered the entire gamut of consumer, from what consumption looks like in India, to building brands, to what is the core of marketing and distribution. And of course, my favorite topic on what it means for Bombay Shaving Company to really compete at the top levels at a global scale. And I hope this episode brought it out for you as much as it did for me. I hope you enjoyed. Welcome to the Barbershop 1 year later.
Yeah.
Almost 1 year and 4 months later.
Yeah, almost. It's been a while. We said we must do this, and it's wonderful to be here in your lovely office. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually start with something more recent on my mind, and I wanted to get your views on this. What is happening with India? Like the 3-4 data points that I'm now seeing, rupees now touching 86, crossed 86, getting to 87. So clearly, like kind of depreciated more than what we would have planned. Across industries, I look at consumption across FMCG, across appliances, across auto sales. There is clearly a slump, or there is definitely people are tightening their pockets. I don't know whether it's a liquidity issue, it is systemic, or it's at a consumption level. We are seeing inflation that is much higher. Even the way we measure it is kind of a little dated. The basket does not include many things that have inflated a lot more. And markets have kind of obviously corrected over the last week or so, but it's not been going well for a while. This time, I don't know about you, but I have a feeling that this is a lot more serious than just cyclical kind of bearish situations. I just want to kind of get your view on how you think about. You've kind of operated here with large companies for many years, but
See, Shantanu, many people are far more supposedly expert,
yeah,
write a lot more, probably make a lot more money, giving opinions and points of view which are, let me call them, short to medium term. The only thing I know is the moment everyone is saying A is happening, and they've all come around that point of view, is about the time B starts happening.
yeah,
So don't sweat from a large macro India point of view the short to mid term. Yeah, inflation will go up, inflation will come down, all that stuff will happen. The only thing which is reliable, I believe, is to think about long-term trends.
yeah.
Now, is India improving economically, at least? Of course it is. The very fact that we have the most important resource in abundance, which is human capability, is not going anywhere. You trend the development of India, forget my lifetime, in your lifetime, in the lifetime of the young people working with you. Where is the worry? All we got to do is to make sure we execute against those advantages well, right? Poverty is reducing. Infant mortality is coming down. Clean water availability is improving. Infrastructure is improving. Per capita incomes are improving, right?
Yeah.
And just trend it and see. You know, if you go back, and you may have seen this, I'm trying to remember the start time, but probably about 1,000 years ago, there's this graph which is circulated, which I've seen on the net, that if you go back 1,000, 1,500 years ago, India was one of the largest GDPs of the world then.
Yes.
Now, all I know is that India's GDP, if I trend over the last 20 years, with the ups and downs which will always happen, is trending in the right direction. So don't sweat the medium term, because who the hell knows what's going to happen in the medium term.
Correct.
Right? No one can predict. Are you doing the right things which are going to continue to improve the livelihood of people, the basic human indicators of people? Of course you are. And if we can execute against them, fine, no worries. Especially younger people now. You know, when I was under 30, did I imagine that 30 years later the world and the opportunities would be like they are now? I couldn't even imagine it.
Yeah.
Now, if you project what I've seen in my lifetime from when I started working, and just to clarify, when I passed out of IIM and I started working in a highly regarded multinational, we never had computers,
Yeah.
correct? When I was in IIT, we used to use something, maybe you'll find in a museum now, called a slide rule.
Yeah.
To do calculations, correct?
Yeah.
Right? Project that forward. Now, so where will it go? So don't sweat. 30 years from now, the younger generation will only have more opportunities. And so that's the way I would always think about it, right?
Yeah, maybe it's an age thing. Maybe I'm at an age where I become a lot more cynical, like this mid-30s situation where everything bad just seems very red flaggy, because I just feel like, there is just a lot of, at a global level, there's a lot more global conflict. There's a lot more volatility of markets and currencies. And then there's a lot of technological change, far more than, at least from a rate of change standpoint. Let's say AI is, replacing jobs. I was seeing the other day, almost 25% of Harvard graduates of this year are still looking for a job.
Correct.
Harvard, right? So maybe I feel like the rate of change is a lot faster and a lot more uncomfortable. Maybe you've seen many cycles, so for you it's kind of
No, there
for
is
long
no
view is easier.
doubt that the rate of change is increasing. It's that good old Moore's law.
Correct.
Correct? Of course the rate of change is increasing.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you track back, all the major changes, if managed well, led to improvements.
Correct.
Okay. So when power looms were developed,
Yeah.
everyone was panicked
Yeah.
about what's going to happen to all the people who are
Employed.
weaving
Yeah.
in such a big industry. So the rate of change should increase.
Yeah.
Our capabilities should increase, and we take advantage. It's like AI.
Yeah.
AI is a huge potential enabler of so many things. What we can easily imagine is the downsides of AI. All coders will lose their jobs because AI will do it. And why can we imagine that easily? Because we know what it is. What we can't imagine as easily is what will be the new opportunities and industries created by this,
Which will employ people back.
which will employ people, which will make people more productive. And it happens with any technological change. I mean, who would have imagined, a little more than a decade ago, that all of us would have been sitting with more powerful computers in our pockets,
Yeah.
frankly, on our wrists,
Yeah.
than Apollo 11 used?
Yeah.
Now, has that reduced opportunities? No. Think about all the app developers.
Yeah.
Think about all the guys offering stuff on that and the services that's enabled. No one had to update maps.
Yeah.
Now they're updating maps all the time, right? Because they're real time.
Correct.
So what gets replaced is easy to imagine. What comes in its place is more difficult to
yeah.
imagine because we have to wait for some brilliant young startup person to figure that out
Yeah.
and offer it.
Yeah.
And once that happens, boom. And this, it's not new, it's harder because it's faster.
Correct.
Okay, no debate. However, we talk about startups, right, and how important they are. Every company in the world, which today is seen as a huge company, started as a startup.
Correct.
My company where I spent most of my career, Procter Gamble, two guys who married sisters, started by making candles on a small scale on the banks of the Ohio River,
Wow.
right? Forget about the technology stuff. That's how all of these started,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter which the company was. Technology companies, of course, where did Intel start,
Yeah.
right? So everything starts as a startup.
Yeah.
Some great startup person figures out a service or a product based on technology which some other startup person has found
Yeah.
and creates many more jobs and opportunities. So nothing to worry about. It's great. When I went to school, my parents could only think, okay, reasonably smart, go do science. Now you finish science, you got two choices: become an engineer or become a doctor.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So not to worry. Don't sweat the short or mid-term. Look at the opportunities.
Amazing. I would like to talk about when you graduated college and kind of building a career in consumer, becoming the CEO of one of the most respected global, companies, building it out in India the way you did. Talk a little bit about that journey, especially from the context of what it meant to build brands in India, and what did you learn from it, which makes India and building brands here such a unique challenge.
One thing that has always stood out to me in India is people tend to think India consumer-facing brands are all about cost and price.
Yeah.
However, in my opinion, and I've worked for P&G in a few other countries, both in the East and the West, India is one of the places where a brand has the most value. And I believe there are some reasons for that.
Okay.
India is an extremely fragmented market. Fragmented in the sense that it's got a huge consumer base. However, the average per capita consumption, both in volume and value, is low. Even if you take categories like shampoos, per capita consumption of shampoos is about 1/3 of other ASEAN countries. Now, because of that, necessarily, to build a mass brand, you need to have and reach out to a very large user base
Yeah.
because the per capita consumption is low. The easiest way to do that is by building genuine, strong brand values. People don't have the time or the effort to do deep research before they pick a brand. It is sort of almost you got to build it as a habit.
Yeah.
I go to the shop, I go to the web page, and I pick this brand. And that's the one I do. For that, the question is, what do you need? Okay. I believe that to successfully build a brand, there are 4 or 5 necessary conditions which have to be achieved. First and foremost, you have to have a proposition which is meeting a articulated or unarticulated consumer need in a superior manner.
Okay.
You can't just go and say, I'm going to do a Me Too. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's got to have something which the consumer makes the consumer prefer to use it. Number 2, you've got to have the technology to be able to deliver that.
Correct.
You can't bullshit the consumer on a sustained basis. Once you have got these 2 things, now you get into basically how do I make a viable business out of this?
Let me just take a step back. So you're saying first is you need to have a proposition that solves for a articulated or unarticulated need
Better than anyone else.
in a superior way compared to anyone else.
Correct.
The second is you need to have a technology that delivers that proposition in a way the consumer recognizes it on usage.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, for the consumer, these are the only 2 things that matter.
Correct.
Now, it is your job to figure out how to make business sense of it.
Okay.
Okay. It's not the consumer's job. The consumer doesn't care whether you make profit or you don't make profit or you've got funding or you don't got funding or whatever.
Yeah. Consumer don't care. I agree.
This is all that the consumer cares about. Now it's your job to figure out how to make commercial sense of this. To make commercial sense of this, you have to figure out certain things. First, you have to have a cost structure which enables you to price at a level where the consumer sees value in that superior proposition
At that price.
while still being able to have the money required to invest in the technology. That's your job, not anyone else's,
Correct.
right? Then you have to be able to, you got this wonderful proposition, you got everything, you got to tell people about it. So you have to have a cost structure which enables you to not only price right, but also invest in the amount of money required to tell people about it. Correct? And the last thing you got to do, which some people, maybe it's my bias of coming from a marketing background, but some people tend to think that this is the only condition required. You have to have a go-to-market which makes this proposition available wherever and whenever the shopper wants to shop. And you need a supply chain which can deliver against this. Now, the key is these last things are your problem. I have seen it so many times. I've got this wonderful proposition. I've got this wonderful technology. But I'm sorry, I have to charge 3 times competition to be able to offer you this.
Correct. Doesn't work.
And I'm doing that to cover my own weakness, which is I can't figure out the harder problem of how to deliver this at 1/3 the cost. That is how you build brands. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
of brands which have been built and brands which got wiped out.
Yes.
Okay? Uh, you may remember, younger people may not remember, there was a laundry brand called Nirma,
Ah, of course.
which in those days P&G wasn't much in detergents at all, but took on the might of Levers,
Correct.
who really dominated this thing. And they had an excellent product, uh, excellent cost structure, and they were able to enter a completely lower tier where Lever didn't even play. They only played with Surf in those days. I think at one point in time they became detergent market leaders,
Yes.
right? And Lever seriously panicked over them, introduced brands like Wheel, etc. Uh, Maybe a decade later or 15 years later, there was a brand which was launched in UP by a small entrepreneur. I think Kanpur Detergents or something it was
Gadi,
called
right?
Gadi.
Yeah.
Wiped out Nirma, pretty much. And what did they do? They produced a product which was superior to Nirma
At a better price or at the same?
at the same price as Nirma. Okay? And I've been to this guy many years ago in Kanpur. He never had a sales force. Okay? He never had a sales force. And when he first started off, guys would bring their trucks, distributors would bring their trucks to him, buy detergent, load it up, and take it away to
And he
sell.
developed the formulation. The formulation
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah. He does it. It's not that the formulation, because there's nothing unique. You can make formulations, it's chemicals, like Ariel is far better than Gadi,
Yeah.
right? So it's a FXL. But he was able to make the mix of a formulation at a cost and a structure, and he completely wiped out that year. Now, this has happened about a decade ago. As far as I know, I've not been tracking that market. But if you can get it right, right? I'll tell you another example. It was actually Procter & Gamble's first product launched as Procter & Gamble in India, which was Whisper sanitary napkins. Whisper had a genuine technology which made it significantly superior in those days. And at that time, a not insignificant competition dominated the market. Johnson and Johnson
stay free.
with Stay Free and Carefree,
Correct.
right? But the market itself was very small. Okay. Whisper was introduced at if I remember right, about a 30% premium to the most expensive J&J brand. And it took time, but I think within about 6, 7, 8 years achieved market leadership. And I think now that market is probably about 10, 20 times bigger than it used to be. Last thing I'll talk about, which I've seen on brands, especially as I've, in my role in Crompton, which is more consumer electricals. It's not that easy, some people think, to expand brands across subcategories.
Correct.
Gillette, hugely dominant in male razors, okay. Not that successful relatively if you start looking at shaving creams and
Yeah.
other stuff, right? And,
Why is that?
okay, let me ask you a question. When you go to buy something, and I'll give you a consumer durable answer,
Yeah.
right? Electricals, because it makes it clearer
Yeah.
than the Gillette example.
Yeah.
When you walk into a store or you go on the page, you're going with the objective of buying something, right? How does your thought process operate? Does your thought process operate on the basis of, today I want to buy a Crompton product? Or does it first start, is the first question in your head or need in your mind, today I need to buy a geyser?
The latter.
Correct. So now you walk in to buy a geyser. Then what does your head say? Okay, I think there are 2 or 3 brands which would be the first ones I would consider. What people call consideration set.
Correct.
And then you go on, then you get in details, and maybe you may
Right.
change your decision. Okay. But you don't suddenly say, let me buy a fan.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So as you go into the subcategories, every subcategory has to win by itself,
It's a very interesting point.
right? Yes, I may have certain associations. So, for example, if I take Crompton, I'll say it's a high quality. Anything Crompton makes is high quality.
Correct.
Anything Crompton makes is trusted. Anything Crompton makes is likely to have good technology. Correct?
So you can, it does kind of, the halo spreads across some categories, but
But I don't buy the product. I don't go through a consumer decision tree starting with that.
correct. That's a good point.
I go through the consumer decision tree starting with I want a geyser. What are the geysers I want? Yes, this geyser is reliable and trusted. So I don't have to convince you too much because Crompton has taught you. Then I will tell you that Crompton geyser is also a smart geyser, which does this or uses less energy, etc.
Yeah.
So that it makes it doesn't automatically happen at the consumer head. And often I have learned these things which we sit in boardrooms and debate. One typical answer is, why are you trying to answer this yourself in the boardroom? Go speak to two consumers. But the more interesting answer is, ask yourself what you would be doing, what you do as a consumer.
Yeah.
And you will get half the answer.
Yeah.
Correct? Just like we talked right now.
Correct. Do you think that, and there's a very interesting point you make around brand value, because I have started grappling with the realization, and I don't know how, maybe you might have a point of view that is, don't sweat it in the long term, brand value wins. But I feel, for two reasons, and I'll articulate them as well as I can, that I think that the moat of brand is slowly diminishing in my view. And I'll tell you why. Number one is, I think channels like quick commerce are commoditizing a lot of categories in a very fast way. Okay, so for example, it is now leading to consumer behavior where people are like, I want this in 10 minutes. As long as it's a part of my consideration set, whatever is available, give it to me. If I'm buying a bhujia, and Haldiram is my favorite bhujia, but Blinkit only has stock of Bikano or Bikaji or Cheda, चलो ठीक है 10 मिनट में आ रहा है उठा लेते हैं, right? So then the ability of a consumer to pick your brand is more about availability and salience in a channel than the brand itself, is what I'm seeing happening in some categories, may not be in all. And the second thing I'm realizing is that younger consumers, especially in categories which are food and beverages, and to some extent high engagement personal care categories also, younger consumers are becoming a lot less brand conscious. So they actually want to remove the, Gen Z, for example, is very authenticity driven. They said, remove the bullshit, don't tell me a story, I'm smart enough, I'll read the label and I'll choose the product that I think is best. I don't want to be told by large advertising budgets and so on, so let me choose. And that's one of the reasons why over the last 10, 12 years, brands have been able to, like for example, Minimalist is a brand that is really taking on companies, and their only real value is that there is no bullshit. These are the 3 molecules in this product, in this face wash. This is what it's going to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And it's made them very successful in these categories. So, do you think that what brand journeys were till now and what they're going to be going forward will be similar or the same, or do you think now brands have to evolve to this new reality of both consumer and channel?
Let's take them two
Yes.
separately. Okay? Let's start with channel.
Yeah.
When I mentioned the 4 or 5 necessary conditions to create a brand,
Correct.
we talked the operational.
Let me revise those. Okay, there's a need with a superior proposition. There's technology to deliver it. There's a viable business model. there's ability to tell the proposition to people, and then there's a go-to-market and supply chain. That's the other 5 things.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. The last one. The go-to-market means you have to make your brand available wherever and whenever the consumer wants to buy.
Correct.
So if the consumer wants to buy your brand in a mall, it better be there. In a kirana, better be there. In a 3.5-minute quick commerce delivery, it better be there. Where the consumer chooses to buy you will keep changing as new channels develop, as new technologies come into play. Now, if you are not available where the consumer wants to pick you up, then
Someone else is going to take a share.
you've not done your job. Simple,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And that changes. The fact that the consumer wants to pick it up where and when she or he chooses has never changed. And will never change, right? I will give you one rider on this. And this learning is largely from a kirana environment. Okay. But it doesn't change much, and I'll tell you why it doesn't change much. If you go to a regular open trade store, and over the years I've seen multiple research on this in modern trade formats, open trade format, different categories. The number one thing a retailer wants from the brand manufacturer is overwhelmingly number one. Send a consumer to my store who asks me for exactly what he wants and I give it to her. It's the number one thing. After that comes things like I make fair profit. After that comes things like I get good service from the manufacturer. And again, ask yourself, when you go to a kirana store, what do you want?
Yeah.
Do you want to spend 15 minutes discussing which soap is new or what is looking, or do you want just a quick transaction? He knows exactly. You tell him what you want, he gives it to you, he takes the money, done.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is...
and that is retail environment agnostic, I think. I think
okay,
behavior patterns are
now
the
correct.
same.
Now, correct. So let's take one of the... And I have another comment on this term, quick commerce, but I'll come to that.
Yeah, I would love to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come to that. Why do you think a quick commerce store keeps someone? Ultimately, they will keep the ones which consumers want, because quick commerce by definition has to have a limited assorted range,
Correct. Dark stores are
fewer
small.
things, smaller things, etc., as opposed to Amazon.
Correct.
Correct? So he will keep the ones which consumers keep clicking on. No?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. So you're right. So you're right. So quick commerce is a place where, in fact, gives the power back to more established brands, because they only, like in any category, they'll only want 4 or 5. They won't have an endless aisle of face washes. They'll say, okay, fine. If someone's searching for the face wash, I want the 5 that will maximize conversion chance. The ones who have built the best brand.
Correct.
Absolutely, that's a good point.
Because everyone works on the basis, all trade works on the basis of the simplest, highest demand, maximize profit per square foot of my space.
Correct.
It's fundamentally how they all work. It doesn't matter who it is, right? My little bit of rider, and then we'll go to the second part of the question on quick commerce. I don't know why people call it quick commerce. It's e-commerce, right? Because when Prime first started, it was quick commerce, right? It became 24 hours.
Correct.
From
It was quicker, yeah.
No, correct. Now, e-commerce has become
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Or 30 minutes.
Someone tried it for 30 minutes, it didn't work, and it's become 10 minutes, and it's taken off.
Correct.
Right? So it's e-commerce.
Correct.
The shopper has always wanted quicker delivery.
Yeah.
The fact that quicker delivery is a big, meaningful need has always been there. Now, someone has figured out, here's a business model that I can give it to you in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's better than 24 hours.
Correct.
Correct? Yeah. So it's not, it is e-commerce. Simple.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But do you think they've gotten the third part of it right, which is the commercial business, viable business model to deliver in 10 minutes? Because good part is two of the three big ones are doing it in public. They're
Not,
both IPO companies.
yeah, not yet, right? But they can figure out, or maybe they won't figure out, in which case this will, all the people who put money in this will fail. And I'll give you an example of where people have not thought it would be much bigger, and then figured out they couldn't make the economics work over time. Modern retail.
Yeah.
Correct?
For the longest time, it was like the next bastion of retail, and it just failed to deliver.
Right.
What happened there?
Because it is not that easy. All right. Because what happened? One is, let's ignore the fact that there's a reasonably big overlap between the early e-commerce buyers and modern trade buyers.
Correct. You're
Okay.
right.
So let's forget that they came and ate part of the possible lunch.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, Walmarts don't exist in the center of New York City,
Yeah.
right? Which is where people started a lot of their stuff,
Yeah.
right? And the cost structures didn't really work out. So you can't keep offering a proposition of lower price without a systemic lower cost structure, right? If you take DMart, they did a better job at that.
Correct.
Right? Because they went into relatively lower cost retail space. They did not spend as much in making the inside so fancy, etc., right? So they never managed a cost structure which could support a proposition of giving the same brand at a lower price.
Correct.
It wasn't really a question. There's a limit to how much you can influence your buying price of branded products, correct?
Correct.
So I don't think that's why they've had a challenge. Now, with 10-minute delivery, we'll see over time. No? It's early days. Will people really manage it? Will maybe the technology of data, analytics, the logistics improvements, all these things will help versus what it was a decade ago.
Coming to the other part of brand, right, which is one is, so you're saying distribution will always evolve with technology and time. Consumer expectations are kind of
The minimalist brand, yeah.
now coming to younger consumers who are saying shed the brand communication away from the core proposition. I want authenticity. I will choose my product, make it naked so I can see what I'm buying. I want to direct. This podcast works for my brand because people want to go beyond the packaging and the brand to see the founder behind it or the people behind it. That's why a lot of people buy Bombay Shaving Company because they relate to what we're doing here, because they want authenticity. Do you think that is something that large companies and large brands, like for example Dettol, is now thinking that, okay, our brands were built for people who are now above the age of 35, but for younger consumers, we might need to totally revamp this?
I don't think it's a change in principle. Okay, nothing has changed.
Okay.
What has changed, which always changes, is the consumer needs and expectations are changing.
Okay.
Let me go back in time again and give you an example of how consumer needs change. When I was studying in India, or even when I just started working, if you ask someone what is their expectation of a shampoo, the top need would be cleans my hair. By around the 90s, if you asked a consumer what is the top need for a shampoo, cleans my hair would not even figure.
Oh, really?
Because it is obvious. You would get things like healthy hair, bouncy hair, long flowing hair, no dandruff in my hair. And God knows now, 10 years later, what it's become, right? Manage my frizzy hairstyle or whatever it may become. So consumer needs always keep
Evolve.
evolving. How do they evolve? The consumer doesn't suddenly imagine, I need something.
Yeah.
Okay. It is innovation by people who bring that in and then communicate it, and then others follow it. It is like the example we just talked about. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you went to potential Gen Z
Yeah.
and asked them, do you think 24-hour delivery of your product is a great idea? They would have probably said, yes,
Yes.
wonderful,
Yeah.
wow, clap, I'll buy you tomorrow. Today you go ask them, they'll say, are you an idiot? I
Yeah.
get it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So these needs evolve. Okay. So if now, and there is clearly, I'll give you another example, real example from my days at Crompton. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, if you ask people their needs from a fan, energy saving wouldn't figure on it. Who thought fans waste energy? Maybe my grandmother who used to tell me, turn the fan off when you put, but in today's generation, no one would have. Today you go ask them,
It's energy saving, is
yeah,
it? What are you saying?
you'll get energy saving will be in the top 2 or top 3.
Wow.
Why? Because a technology was developed. Fans used to use 70 watts. Fans now use 30 to 35 watts. And people have talked about it.
Yeah.
So that need comes up. So the key word you used when you gave this example was authenticity. Tell me about your brand in a way I want you to tell me about my brand, your brand, the brand to me. I don't want to hear your way. I want to hear from you the way I want to hear about it.
Yeah.
I want to hear from you about my brand in a way that is relevant to my life. Now, in the 1950s, 1940s, maybe the way which was relevant to the person's life to sell a dishwasher
Yeah.
was to show the poor lady of the house and how happy she was because now it was easy for her while she is serving her
Yeah.
useless husband.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
That's not the way to talk to her about it today.
Yeah.
Right? So, if, and this is true, it's not just minimalist, there are many things. There's sustainability, there's environment,
Yeah.
right? There's all sorts of things which are all potential benefits. You've got to figure out the first point.
Yeah.
For your target audience, which benefits are the most meaningful and superior? And then, in point number 3, you've got to communicate it
Yeah.
in a way that that person wants to hear it. And that's always been true. That has never changed. Gives you a biggest leverage.
Give me examples of this. Like, give me examples of stuff that is timeless on this, which is an idea that is, that truly delivers a fantastic proposition told well.
2, I'll give you one of a American Procter brand called Bounty,
Uh-huh.
which is a paper towel brand. I first saw this commercial in early 1980s. And apparently it's been running since the 1960s. And the line was the quicker picker upper.
Okay.
Okay? And it was basically about the first commercial I saw was this lady called Rosie in a diner in the US.
In the US, okay.
Yeah, US, it's an American brand. Okay. Spill, and then the speed of Bounty would absorb and clean it. I happen to watch Prime Video at home, and it's the US Prime feed, not the Indian Prime feed, which I have access to. I saw the same picker upper ad still running. Now,
I've seen, yes.
different ad. Okay. Obviously, there's been huge innovation, there is thing, but that same idea running.
The quicker picker upper.
Yeah. And it's still about spill, a different context, different environment, different everything, but still a spill on the kitchen table and pick up. And the speed of pickup versus the other guy who doesn't pick up. Okay? So that's by now, I guess, about 50 years. That same basic idea is running. Okay? And still building share. Of course, you need the innovation, the product keeps improving,
For sure.
etc., etc.
Still a market leader, Bounty?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Dominant market leader.
What differentiates great marketers from the good ones? Because I think you worked at a company that actually cultivated the art and science of marketing both. And do you? A lot of people confuse. So a lot of our viewers are probably confuse marketing from advertising, and they're two very different things. They kind of overlap in some ways, but marketing is a very commercial, art and science, consumer-driven study, while advertising is more storytelling of what marketers do. But Procter and Gamble has been the epicenter of creating great marketers. What differentiates great marketers from good ones? Like what do they do that allows this S curve for brands to start playing out?
At the end of the day, it's really only one thing at the heart of it all. And it is a genuine belief that everything starts and ends with the consumer. This guy, this old ex-global CEO of P&G, I think first coined the specific phrase, the consumer is boss. Nothing else matters. Then you build skills and capabilities. I'll tell you this other story I once heard, which encapsulated very well. There was a period. Again, I'm sorry, it's going to become a little bit of an American reference.
That's right.
You know, baseball was traditionally the grand old sport of American families.
Correct.
It was where the father and son would truly bond. Yeah. And it had all those American values sort of attached to it. Then baseball then went through a real slump. Attendances fell, money was less, clubs were not doing well. And there was this guy who once spoke to us, and he was whatever they called a general manager or something, I think of the Atlanta Braves. He made a huge success. It became one of those case study successes of the Atlanta Braves and what they did. So he was speaking to us, and someone asked him, so what did you do? How did you make this happen? And then post that, everyone else copied, and baseball went through a revival. And I've always remembered the way he encapsulated it. He said, nothing. I just went to her and asked her, what does she want? And I gave it to her. And the kind of things they did.
Give examples of what
Yeah.
did
This guy figured out, or his team figured out, very simple thing, which was the fathers still wanted their sons to come because their father had brought them.
Correct.
But the sons that bloody 11, 12, 13 didn't want to come anymore.
To the baseball games.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So what he did, the first, if I recall right, big intervention he made is at the entrance of the stadium, he created this full sports-based fun park targeted at young kids, which, you could pitch. One of the substitutes of the team would come and bat against your pitch.
Correct.
All kinds of games. You can think of what he created. And that became a hit. Then the kids wanted to come. And the father happy. Then, of course, he kept on. That was the key one. But so now almost every big baseball park has this
Whole thing.
thing out there. Then, of course, upgraded the hard wooden bleacher seats.
Correct.
And all that kind of stuff, which you keep building on. But That's what he found out. A simple thing that the dad still wanted to come,
Yeah.
but the son would find some excuse not to come.
Yeah.
And that's why everything was coming down. So he recreated by doing this as a family thing to go to.
Wow.
Simple.
End of the day, a product is a product is a product, and you have to just make sure you tell it in the best possible way.
No,
No. Okay.
that's a wrong approach. A product is a product, and now you've got to figure out how to sell it. No. The right approach is what does the person want?
Yeah.
Now let me design the entire proposition, beginning to end,
For the person.
to deliver what that person wants.
And what the person wants also changes over a period of time also.
Of course, not only changes over a period of time, but sometimes you can force that change with your innovation. The iPhone was not the first full screen phone. Having lived that transition, who could have imagined in those days giving up their BlackBerry?
Yeah.
Correct?
I loved my black. I used to
Yeah,
love it.
oh, I remember it. No, they've lost, but the typing is so cool.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So, I mean, if you read some of Steve Jobs' stuff, and of course, they had the big failure before that, Newton.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs actually said, no, you can't ask these consumers. You've got to figure out where you want to take them.
Correct.
So it can happen both ways.
Absolutely.
And, you ask what's the basic skill of marketing? Basically, it's figuring that out. Either where you can take them, or what they want but are not telling you freely.
Yeah.
Those are the things which basically lead. Then, of course, you've got to execute everything. You've got to have the tech, actually deliver that from a technology point of view. You've got to give it at a value which makes sense. You've got to make it available on quick commerce.
Wherever the customer
or
wants.
whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's marketing to me.
We've been doing this, Shantanu, for like for 9 years now. And since we met a year and a half back, I actually want to get your more updated view on I want you to I remember you had, and people were very happy about how you had dragged me to bits on my sale of our 99 rupee razor. But I want to give you an update on where we are on this, and quite proudly so. Some things that we have done well and some things that we have not. And the idea is to learn from companies that do marketing and consumer work so beautifully, and try to kind of authentically do that at our end to give consumers this, right? We had realized that at the age of 17 or 18, the young Indian male consumer at a product level wanted a product that was sensitive on the skin because they had acne. A lot of them had beards that now were like fashion accessories. Like they wore them as identity almost, right? Like look at both of us, for example, right? At 17, 18, it's coming.
Mine is not fashion identity. Mine is laziness.
No, but you wear it really well. Like you wear it with a certain amount of wisdom that comes with the beard. But at 17, 18, you have a fresh beard. You want to show it. You're obviously watching Virat and some of the you want to show that, right? And the idea was, can we give a product that at the right price point is able to deliver a sensitive skin, able to get the line of the beard right without the irritation that a young skin causes. That's where we were. And we launched a 99 rupee razor, which was an empty price point at that point. And over the last 1.5 years or so, I think 2-3 big things have happened. One is we have seen an unequivocal movement of younger men for hair removal on the face move to trimmers first and then to razors. And we realized that the trimmer purchase, especially in urban India and to some extent in tier 2, tier 3 India, is happening at the age of 14 or 15. The razor purchase continues to be at 17, 18, right? So 3 years before they buy their first razor, they're buying their first trimmer. And we realized there's a huge opportunity because the largest razor company, Gillette, which does so beautifully in the razor space, and we learn so much from them. But here, it is a motley crew of electronics appliances companies that are making trimmers. There's no grooming company here. And we realized that this consumer wants a grooming solution, right? Something to shape their beard, something to get the intimate areas better. And not at 14, 15, but in general, the trimmer consumer is now becoming sharper. Like I remember 5 years back, the trimmer consumer would buy one trimmer and use it all over their body, for the chest, for the back, for the face, everything. But now, I want a trimmer for my beard, which has different hair lengths. I want a different trimmer for my body with longer hair. For my intimate areas, I want something which is more sensitive, and so on. For head, something else,
Yep.
right? So we said, okay, this is a huge opportunity for a razor company to actually build trimmers. So we probably today, from a 400 rupee trimmer to a full body grooming set at 4,000, a superior product. And we realized that here we have to play the game a little bit of the appliances. C-type charger, 90-minute charging time, 90-minute run time, 2-year no questions asked warranty, stuff like this, which doesn't necessarily work in
Yep.
razors, but we've
Yep.
had to make it work in trimmers. Good part is value is good. Gross margin had to be maintained. But we actually got the consumer to buy Bombay Shaving Company well before. So today, we have around 6 to 7% share in value of all trimmers, roughly a 3% by volume of all trimmers in India within a year of launching trimmers. And that's where the consumer funnel gets built out. And then when the consumer wants to go and buy a razor, because it is an addendum to the trimmer use case, we then have products from a 20 rupee disposable to the 99 rupee, which is a core product, our Sensi 3-blader Smart 3 product, and then a 4-blader and a 6-blader, which again, the fundamental thesis is for young consumers with sensitive skin and want to shape their beards, we have an offering at the price point which is able to deliver this proposition best to you. And in this whole melee, we have created a business that collectively between trimmers and razors is almost upwards of 200 crores very quickly. And while we have not gotten the availability bit right because it's expensive, our throughput per store, especially at a kirana and general trade level, is obviously very low. So we don't have the money to put, in many cities and so on. But the cities where we are, and especially because quick commerce has given, if you look for a razor now, you'll only find 2 brands. And the good part is quick commerce is the wave that we are riding to be able to get people to try more. So on quick commerce, for example, we have upwards of 15% share blended in the razor category and upwards of 26% in the trimmer category, despite Philips having launched almost 6 months back, and we are kind of maintaining that. So I think we're very proud of the fact that we have found a way to combine these two categories which were very different and unique before, but because the consumer is now kind of using them together and we have kind of that overlap for us is very big. However, having said that, I think to be able to, we are still 1/5 the size of Gillette in India, and we want to grow and make our offerings available to a lot more people. And we are now starting to see competitive pressure. We are seeing aggressive litigations to, in stores, our products kind of going behind, sometimes being bought out completely to, the usual market dynamics. When you're small, no one cares about you. And when you're large enough to be a pain in the ass, people kind of will
Yep.
feeling the heat as a company. But I wanted to get your view on if we are thinking about this right, because no one has actually built out this big a business in these categories for a while now, other than Supermax, for example, but very different, different price point and a very different game. But I wanted to get your sense on how you think we are thinking about it from where we were last time.
See, one, it's inspiring to hear your story of your success, especially in this trimmer and area, face and body, in the last 1 year, because that's really, really cool.
It's huge. Yeah.
And your competitive context is very different.
Correct. From when we met last.
And in
Yes.
some ways, as you've rightly identified, from looking at the consumer, different from the competitive context because everyone else is coming from electrical hardware.
Correct.
Kind of thing, right? I can only give you one suggestion as you think of this further. Stop thinking about your market in terms of physical categories.
Okay.
My markets are razors and trimmers. There is a concept which is called, because you've identified who your target consumer is, need-based segmentation.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter what category, which is frankly internal manufacturer speak, you're thinking of. So the question I'd leave you to ask yourselves is, what business are you in?
Yeah.
Right? And this is not a trivial question.
Yeah.
Because literally it starts from the name of your company.
Yeah.
right? So what is the nature of your business? Or what is the business? And the more expansive, and this will change over time, like it's already, you're kind of seeing a change. This will, because the more narrowly you define it, and categories tend to define it narrowly.
Yeah.
So example, I can say I'm in the shampoo business, or I can say I'm in the hair care business.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
So maybe that will give you some, if you think about it that way and think about it from need segments. So this segment of, for example, the segment can no longer be called first time shavers,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
What is that need segment you're after?
Yeah.
And from that, define what is the business you're in currently. 5 years from now,
It could be.
it could change.
Let me take a shot at it, and I would love for you to respond. I think we are in the business of giving delightful products to consumers in India who are young and want to remove hair from their body in a quick, efficient, hygienic way.
Now, just to fiddle with that,
Yes.
are you sure it's to remove hair?
Yes.
It's not to shape hair, to create hair. And it's just for example.
You're right. So the removal part is foundational. The styling part is the result of good hair removal.
Correct. Okay, so is it the styling you're offering via, so think about the expansiveness of it, because
I would love
automatic.
to articulate this. Yes.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's not a trivial question, and it's not something to figure out in 2 minutes. But it's worth thinking about, especially because you seem to have got some not just success, but some very clear learnings about who you're talking about and what is their need, etc., etc.
Let me give you an example, okay? So I spoke about the trimmer and the razor, right? We believe that hair removal, real estate or surface area has expanded to the body. And we have some very clear data points. So trimmer used to be 80% beard and 20% body 5 years back. Today trimmers are almost 60% body and 40. And when we go double click on that, we realize that people who are removing hair from their body are doing it for 2 or 3 major reasons. Number one, looking good has now become more hairless than it was with hair for men. For women, it has always been the case.
And
For sorry,
understand. Now, question.
huh.
Just to probe this area. If so, hair removal is kind of the space if you're talking
Yes,
about. Would that ever lead you to a hair removal cream for men?
we already have it.
Correct?
We have a hair
Right?
removal cream and we have innovated technology to make it a hair removal spray.
Correct. Okay. So that then starts taking you. So it's no, because shaving, whether you like it or not, connotes face.
For men, yes.
Yeah, for men. For
Yes,
men. We're
yes,
talking, I guess, in the men's space. So anyway, the more expansive you can take that,
yes.
right? And then you prioritize which are the ones you want to go, sequentially you want to go for based on the size of the segment and the opportunity, because that is what will make you unique.
Yeah,
Because that's not what Gillette stands for,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's also not what Philips stands for,
Correct. That gives us a
correct?
very unique position.
It,
Absolutely.
it gives you a unique position which can build over time. But more expansive you take it, the better.
Yeah. For example, I believe like we have a very good aftershave solution. We have a balm and we have a sandalwood and turmeric aftershave lotion, which is alcoholic. Both of these are very high quality products. In the markets they're available, they have double-digit share. But it's a small market. But the expansion of those experiences into fragrances has been
Correct.
very
But now
effective
what's
for us.
happening is, see, so now we're talking fragrances also. So now what is the business you're
Correct. So
in?
now, exactly. So
So
now this is where we start pushing the envelope as brand Bombay Shaving Company, that we have a right to win in aftershave lotions because we are a shaving business and a hair removal business and we take care of you after. But we believe that the consumer who shaves and then showers and then comes out and while they're putting on their shirt and going to work, they are putting on a deodorant and a fragrance. And if they've just 5 minutes back used Bombay Shaving Company successfully and they're happy to repeat it, and if we have an offering here which gives them similar sensorial delight that the in-bathroom experience did, then we have a right
no,
to win here
no
as well.
debate. Okay, but that goes back to category-wise thinking,
Correct.
as opposed to
Consumer wise, yeah.
and and you. don't pick categories because they happen to be, in quotes, adjacent. You decide where you want to be, and then you start putting in the offerings which will delight consumers in that space.
And the consumer needs you there and
Correct.
will give you a shot.
Correct.
You're if you were in your role 10 years back or 15 years back, and your consumers are going to this upstart trimmer company which is trying to compete with you 3 years before they come to you, for example, to buy an entry level first time shaving product, would that be worrisome for you, or would you say, okay, that's just how the market is evolving, and I'll continue to do what I do well? It's okay if the consumer's trying something else at the age of 14 and we don't participate in that category.
Two things. First, I would take it seriously from day one. Okay, even if it doesn't appear to be a significant issue for me today. And I think that's how you got to look at all competition if you're the established player. A, a dozen people may come with different things which are kind of eating out but not really very significant today. You've got to assume they're the biggest threat which could ever happen and work on that basis.
Or is it?
Yeah. Now, whether someone does or not, I don't know, but that's what you got to do. That's the only way you will
Protect.
remain a leader. Now, that being said, if I was a market leader in this business in India, my biggest focus would still be converting double-edged blade users to systems.
Correct.
Correct? Because that's where there's still huge opportunity for growth.
25 crore
But
people.
because I'm the leader, it would be equally important that I stamp out at first sign anyone coming in.
And what do we do in that case? Because we feel this heat a lot. How do you think a startup like us, which does not have the resources, and which has nothing but respect for competition, how do you think we should, or do we say, you know what, I don't care what market is doing, I will do what is best for consumer, the best I can, tell them and let consumer choose because consumer is the boss?
Ultimately, you have to do the second. And you cannot get distracted from the second. However, you have to do the first also.
It's not an either or.
Okay, it's a simple story. Yeah, it's not an either or. Okay, like everyone says, focus on the long term. Don't get distracted by the short term, and that's true. However, the reality is, if you don't manage the short term challenges, there is no long term. However, you have to manage the short term challenges in a way which doesn't compromise the long term. So, welcome to the real world. That's the way the world is.
Yeah.
Right? If your aspirations are sky high, then you just have to. Now, what is may appear the hardest, but the ultimate solution to this? Be the first person with the next great invention.
Yeah.
I mean, King Gillette developed the double-edged blade from the regular Ustra.
In 1905.
Correct?
Insane.
Then someone developed, I'm assuming the Gillette company developed a system razor probably in 1970s, something like that. About time, no? Someone brought the next great thing.
Yeah.
And the next great thing, it's important, but the next great thing is going to completely transform the market. The one thing I guarantee you is not going to be a seventh blade and an eighth blade,
yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, those are the incremental innovations. That is always the best solution, but they don't come easy and they're never guaranteed. In the meantime, you have to do this.
Completely agree. How do you think, like, so for example, what we take as huge amounts of flattery and, what we love is when market leaders kind of do what we are doing. Because it gives us tremendous value. I'll give you two examples, okay? So we launched a foam that was charcoal, which had charcoal as the core. It was total departure from the foam category, which was like white in color. We had a grayish foam, and we said it's got charcoal, it'll clean your face. The fragrance was a little like 2 times more, so it stayed on after the. So the insight was that consumers in India shave before they shower, And after the shower gets done, if our foam fragrance remains and it is kind of added on to by our aftershave fragrance, then the consumer feels protected through the journey from shave to aftershave because there's a shower that's happened in the
Yep.
middle. And hence the charcoal foam had a lot more, so it was unique in its own way. It cleaned the face, it gave a good fragrance. And then Gillette launched their own charcoal foam a year later, which had not happened ever before, and we felt, okay, cool, that's great. We were obviously a little scared that, okay, maybe now market, but now we're right. We continue to, despite everything else, we continue to sell more, right? The second one was more interesting. Do you remember our razor packaging was not a blister pack where you could actually see the razor, and you had
Yep,
said
yeah, yeah.
that make it blister, and we said you're absolutely right. In fact, even the feedback from modern trade, especially DMart, Reliance, were like, guys, don't put this razor inside a box because people want to see what it looks like.
Correct.
Especially you're a new brand. So cool. So we are now moving. We had those box razors, like the box with the razor photo on it. We're moving them slowly to blister packs. But Gillette has now changed its Mark III packaging
To a
to the box. And we have no idea why. We believe, very like maybe naive in our own way, that okay, they think that this is a nice way to, because it's a bigger pack, so it takes more space on the shelf. So I think that they did it to kind of counter that. But we are happy about these two things. How, like, do you think that this is how competition works? Like, it's just kind of you have to be ahead of the curve a lot.
Imitation is always great flattery.
But is it validation of the
Okay,
product?
right. However, don't get carried away with it.
Yeah.
Because if they're doing their job as a leader, they should be, any activity you do, they should be replicating it within hours.
Oh, really?
If they could, they won't be able to. As leader, why would I leave a gap? I don't know. Nothing is guaranteed.
I don't know why they're not getting into trimmers.
Okay.
I always wonder why Gillette would
Right.
not get into trimmers.
I don't know. Arjun may know more than me about that. Okay.
Arjun, yeah.
But don't get carried away with that, thinking that
We're doing something good.
we're necessarily doing much better.
Yeah.
There, stay focused on what the consumer is telling you and are you doing the right things for them. Because that's
Good point.
because if you were Gillette, if you were the market leader, you saw anything happening, wouldn't you want to whack-a-mole it?
Yeah.
Correct? It's a logical thing to do. You got resources, you got time, it's not much of a business, etc., etc., etc.
That's a good point. I actually now want to kind of change courses and talk about what it takes to build a great career. And you're a tremendously successful marketer turned CEO turned business leader. You then kind of took over a private equity owned large behemoth, turned that around, and so you've donned many hats, and you obviously worked in institutions that kind of gave you the platforms and the opportunities and possibly mentorship and peer group and learnings to do that. But what were the inputs from your side that truly distinguished you from your peers to be able to build out a career that was as successful as yours? And this follow-up question to that is, what does that mean for people entering the workforce today, especially from a context of building brands and consumer, but also more generic and overall?
Not surprisingly, a question I've been asked many times. Okay. But given the context of the discussion, I'll answer it for two areas. Area number one is, in quotes, corporate life, working for a company. And then I will put an addendum for entrepreneurship. In your career, and remember, a career is 35, 40 years long, longer than most of you have been alive.
Yeah.
So it's not a short thing. Many people spend so much time plotting, what ifing, wondering about their career. Some things which impact your career and can impact your career significantly are absolutely out of your control. There may be just luck involved. Maybe there was a great role somewhere and there was a prime guy who was meant to take it, but for whatever reason that guy decided to go do a postgraduate in Harvard. So you got it. Nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Correct? Nothing you can do about it. People say that, oh, I need to build a relationship with my boss's boss, and that person thinks well of me, and he will give me a leg up, etc., etc. All that stuff flows around. Later in your career, some personal things may happen. I have a great opportunity here, but I need to be somewhere else because now my parents need looking after. Various things happen. Not really nothing to do with you. There is only one thing which is 100% in your control. And in my opinion and my experience, has a bigger impact than all the other factors. And that one thing is do a jackpot job in whatever is the job you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Put all your energy and effort in that. Because if you do a jackpot job in whatever you're doing right now, you will significantly improve the probabilities.
Yeah.
And it's only probabilities, you can't guarantee. Nothing else matters. However, the amount of time people spend and energy they spend thinking that other things matter is crazy. And I've seen all that happen so many times. Oh, that guy got promoted in Australia. What does that mean to me?
No one cares, yeah.
Oh, that guy got 2% more increment than me. Does that mean my career is over and I need to shut up shop and look somewhere else? Yeah. Even if you are moving out for whatever reason, you will get much better offers if you've done a jackpot job at what you're doing today. Because word spreads, right? Everyone takes references, everyone knows when all the headhunters know, etc. So even if you want to leave a great company, the people looking for you will be many more if you do a jackpot job. So the only advice I ever give people to maximize your career, do a jackpot job in what you are doing today. Bus.
And everything else is kind of external.
Everything else is out of your control. It may work out, it may not, because it's all about probabilities. No?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like when I was in school, I was the topper in school. I went to IIT. Everyone was a topper there.
Yeah.
Okay, correct?
Yeah.
From their school. So big deal.
Yeah.
Correct? So nothing else matters. Now the question is, only second question to ask yourself is, what does it take for me to do a jackpot job in what I am doing today? Here, my belief, and this is only my belief, you are more likely to do a jackpot job in what you're doing today if you enjoy what you are doing today. If you don't enjoy what you're doing today, especially if you think 40 years of doing today's, right? You are not likely to do. I don't know. There will be hard times. There will be tough times. There will be times when Kohli has to sacrifice his butter chicken.
Yeah.
Or get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym. No one enjoys that, right? After a point. But you have to do it. Why? Because he enjoys playing cricket. So, find yourself something you basically enjoy doing. Not every moment of every day. That's not possible. And do great at that and forget about your career. It'll handle itself.
A lot of people have kind of gotten onto the wrong side of that argument on the do a jackpot job of what you're doing today. I think it's a great way to frame it because a lot of people consider the proxy to be effort. And a lot of CEOs in recent history...
We're going down the 90
hour, 70 hour. And these are all people who are self-made. These are not people who are handed things down and they're telling people. These are probably people who have walked the talk and now are at an age and an experience which their life story has told them that showing up every day with the best version of you is possibly the best chance of giving yourself the success that you so desire and deserve. But there is a significant rider that that young people are kind of putting on this, which is, hey, and I don't know whether it's whether it's indicative of a more systemic inequity, like the rich are getting richer and there's just too much at the bottom of the funnel to kind of for anyone to feel like if I do this, I'll have success like this person has had. So this just looks like I'm being taken advantage of. Uh, so how? Because I think
I've got three comments.
yes,
Okay, on three slightly different facets of the first thing. Yeah. Comment number one: don't believe everything you read in the media, because the media, by definition, is sensationalizes stuff. Correct? So who knows what was actually said in full context? And I bet you there are delivery boys working 90 hours a week.
yes,
Correct? Okay. But let's put that aside. Second comment is, to me at least, hours don't matter as much as what you do with those hours. That's of more relevance. There are people who can show up for 90 days but have 90 hours and have zero productivity. There are people who can show up for 50 hours and have great productivity. So the hours are not relevant, it's what you do with them. Third point, and this is a little more into it, I have a fundamental disagreement with the concept of work-life balance. And I'll tell you why my disagreement is. The very term sort of makes it seem like a seesaw.
yeah. Whether in adversarial relationship,
one goes up, other goes down. Yeah. I don't believe that that's the right way to think. I much rather think of a concept called life balance. There are many things, and if you think of it as a circle or a wheel, which I want to keep in balance, so I don't have to do wheel alignment.
Yeah.
There are many aspects of my life. There is my social life, there is my health, there is my civic responsibilities, there is my professional growth, there are my interests. Like, for example, a common interest people say when they reach is, I want to travel. I've never had time to travel. I hate travel and I don't want to travel even now. Okay?
I totally agree with you.
So everyone has this circle. And this circle of all your personal individual drivers need to be aligned at all times. And these drivers can change. And it's crazy because we talk about the seesaw. Now, I stopped working in an executive role about 6 months ago. Right? I do other work, but I don't get monthly salary. And I don't go every day to office and come back. Now people are telling me my life is unbalanced because I'm not working enough. Correct? But my life is perfect. So I don't like this seesaw. Yeah. It's a personal decision. And this changes. When we had small kids, one new spoke came in my wheel, which was babysitting or being with the children. Yeah. Correct? Now they're all gone and made their own life. I've got one of the reasons I've come to Delhi for this, apart from spending time which is wonderful, is because my old mother is here living alone. So it gives me an opportunity to see her. Correct? So this balance always exists. So I would think of it as a circle. You define your circle. Every individual circle leads to a certain outcome or a hoped for outcome. That's your outcome to decide. If you have a circle A and I have my circle B, don't feel bad about me hitting my outcome, which might be different from the outcome you want. Correct? So that's how I think of this life wheel more than work-life balance.
It's a wonderful way to put it, actually. Because frameworks are interesting, right? The moment you tell someone work-life balance, you're right. The intrinsic relation between work and life becomes adversarial.
Correct.
And then it goes against the fact that you don't enjoy what you're doing.
Correct.
So it becomes a drain.
Right. Now, if you want to become better at anything, you do need to do certain things and capabilities. For example, it's not only about Virat Kohli going to a gym. Correct? if you want to become a great marketer, you need to invest in building certain skills and capabilities and knowledge, etc., to do that, or whatever you want to become great at. That
But
will never go away.
do you think that that's a position of privilege that you can choose something that you enjoy doing, and most people have jobs that they don't fully fundamentally enjoy?
Do you think I enjoyed 5 years in IIT? I did, but not in the classes. Correct?
Yeah.
Right? See, if we think of 1.4 billion people, unfortunately, we are not yet a developed enough country
Yeah.
where people have the material luxury of doing that. If you go all the way, there's no doubt. I mean, there's still hundreds of millions of people in poverty in this country. Okay, but if you start coming up that pyramid, people who even know they are Gen Z, for example, are in that pyramid. They have much more choices than what I had, which neatly leads me to the other thing I wanted to add on career, which is the one thing I said I want to add on, which is entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Everything I said on corporate applies. There's one more thing which is needed, I believe, for successful entrepreneurship, and that is an ability to take risk. Okay, because you're not in this kind of protected cocoon. Now, what is the linkage between that and what you just mentioned? The biggest thing which creates an ability to take risk is security, is individual security. I know even if this risk does not pan out,
I'll be okay. Yeah.
I'll be okay. Here is where I believe lots of people, especially the nature of the people we're talking about, act as if they are more insecure than what the reality dictates. They think that the world is going to collapse around them if this risk fails. Much more so than the world is actually going to collapse around you. Yes, if your risk fails, you may not have 2 unicorns, but that's okay. Most people don't have 2 unicorns, correct?
Yeah.
And they're still driving around in pretty nice cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, right? Their kids still go to pretty good schools.
That is true.
If you can get more secure as an entrepreneur, and frankly, even if you're in corporate life, you will take more risks. And by risks, I don't mean stupid risks, right? But you have more, let me put it, capacity for failure than you think you have. And it is only if you are willing to fail that you will become successful.
That is so true.
Correct? So that is the other thing which I need is, and you got to remember, we talk about entrepreneurship in this context as it's some higher order big thing. Every little shopkeeper on the road, every cycle wala,
Yeah.
every person 9 out of 10 people you meet if you walk out of your office is an entrepreneur. And guess what? His or her capacity for failure is less than yours.
Absolutely.
Correct? So if you can harness and feel that security, I've often thought about this and I've never figured out why. Hey, you're working in P&G, you're not going to die, eh? You're not going to be jobless. Why are you so scared of telling your boss he's wrong?
Can you imagine?
Politely,
Yeah.
not in a...
Can you imagine, for example, like we enforce entrepreneurship on agriculture,
Yeah,
where there is variables like rainfall, selling price of crops, yield,
correct.
agricultural input costs.
Everything.
On the poorest people, we enforce entrepreneurship.
The guy serving puri aloo down the road.
Yeah.
An entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Correct? Every little guy driving a rickshaw, entrepreneur.
Yeah. It's such an important point. Their ability to absorb shock of risk not panning out is so much lesser than ours.
Think of it as a capacity to fail.
Yeah.
Because the only reason you avoid risk is because you fear failure. But we are blessed. We're privileged. We have huge capacity to fail.
Much bigger than we imagine.
Much bigger than we imagine. We always, it's back to something you said right in the beginning, which is, or we were talking earlier, you always imagine the downsides
Yeah.
because the upsides are harder to imagine.
Yeah.
Imagine the upsides.
Do you think that's needed now at a generational level? Do you think that, for example, you could not take that risk maybe in the 80s or 90s?
Oh, I could not. I mean, I started working after IIT, IAM, working for an American multinational. My starting salary, and I'm going to sound really old, was 1,800 rupees a month.
Which year was this?
83. When I got married, I didn't have a home to live in Bombay, and my salary would have grown to now some amount of maybe 1,900 rupees, and my wife was still a student.
Wow.
That being said, to be clear, it sounds like that now. I never felt I had a problem.
Yeah.
I could afford to buy my old monk then. I can afford to buy it now.
Blinkit didn't exist.
That's okay.
Amazing.
What you don't know, you don't miss.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a valuable point that the risk capacity we have is much larger than we
Yeah.
give credit for.
Correct.
That's incredible. Do you think that the onus is now on people listening to kind of take that plunge, because to assess this in a more objective way rather than a more insecure way, and kind of imagine the upside more clinically?
It's yes. Ultimately, it's an individual thing to do. All people like you and me can do is point it out to people. But I know it's not easy. I know I am still risk averse. I still fear failure. Yeah, I still fear. Hey, am I going to continue to? I don't get a monthly salary. Am I going to manage? Yeah, correct.
What a lovely conversation, Shantanu. Thank you so much.
No.
This is
Nice.
really a lot of fun. So much to think about. Everyone I told that, including Arjun, that Shantanu's coming on the pod. Make sure that there's a marketing masterclass as a part of the conversation, because I think it's a understood science for most people, and it's becoming very important for people to become good marketers as
Yeah.
they become good entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And earlier marketing used to be a smaller number of people who do it in companies like Procter or Colgate or
Correct.
Levers. But now everyone who's an entrepreneur, like my friend runs a hospitality brand, they have to do great marketing. Another friend is now starting something in food, they have to do marketing.
And the only thing I reinforce them is marketing includes but does not start with selling or media channels.
Yes, absolutely. Or advertising.
It doesn't start there. It includes but doesn't start there.
I wanted to actually open this up to folks here on observations, questions. This is our intern cohort.
Intern cohort.
Right, our
I got
first time we've had intern. We've had
That's
management
wonderful.
trainee cohort, but the first time we've had intern cohort. So, guys, any questions for Shantanu? Yes,
Yeah.
Sarthak, go ahead.
So just for example, I would say there are a lot of earphone brands, earbuds, Bluetooth earbuds that go around in the market and they do extremely well. But probably only because they're cheap and they're just trendy looking. In terms of utility, they might not serve the purpose for one, that longer duration, and two, of that quality. And I'm sure there are a lot of products, even in the industry that my father operates in.
What industry is that?
Yeah, that's textile manufacturing. The only thing I hear my father on and on and on about every day is सिर्फ प्राइस से फर्क पड़ता है, सिर्फ सस्ता चाहिए, हल्का हो तब भी चल जाता है. And that's still going on. Like in the D2C business, or probably in the consumer facing business, might not entirely be the message you want to give to the consumer, but that's still the reality in my opinion for a lot that's going on. And I'll ask the second question after.
The key word you used was doing well. So what does doing well mean? You've got to step above marketing first. And you've got to define your organizational objectives. Ideally, like you guys have done in Bombay Shaving Products, you've got to first define an organizational purpose and then your objective. There's a big difference between an objective which says, in the next 10 years, my objective is to become the market leading men's grooming product in India, versus saying, my objective is in the next 5 years, I want to make a textile business for 100 crores. Right? Once you define your objective, you now need to move to the next step, which is define your strategy. My strategy is really the answer of how. The how will be a function of what I want to achieve. So, if your headphone guy has an objective of, I need to make sure I sell, let's call it 10 crores value a year, then you look at what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Maybe he has a strength which is called a very good understanding of low cost import channels of electronics from China, and he knows he can do that competitively. He may well choose to say that if I introduce in 20 cities, or if I introduce only in 2 e-commerce channels at 50% lower price, I could hit my 5 crore objective in a year, right? So it's an objective defines that strategy. Now, no one is now when I was talking about superior brand, it basically is coming from a point of view of an objective. Broadly speaking, I want to become a number one or a number two player in that business, in at least the country, if not the world. But like we said, there are many people, in fact, I think I was mentioning earlier, a much larger part of our GDP in India comes from small scale. They're like your father's business, I know nothing about, but there's so many different businesses in the textile area. Someone else may say that I'm going to make textile and I need to do this much. These are my strengths. I will choose to basically export my textile to Walmart or Target. Here to export, I need these designs and this cost, and I'll do it. So it is through that. Then the appropriate marketing comes out. But the only point I'll never agree with, a particular target consumer has no specific need. Value is a need, and if you can provide better value by a cheaper price because you've got something in you which is better, of course, go for it. The Ghadi story was low price, correct? In fact, I think, and I may be wrong in the number, the guy had an 84% share in the largest laundry estate in this country called UP. Wow. Can you imagine? Right? Where he started with.
At what point in the business do you choose to decide मैं word of mouth marketing करूँगा कि मैं marketing normally करूँगा? So for example, brands like Zerodha, and there was one book I was reading which mentioned the $100 steakhouse in the US, in which he just sells a $100 steak. Now, as per the steak, there's nothing $100 about it. But just the fact that it's a $100 steak, it really appealed to a lot of people कि ऐसा क्या चलो मैं भी try करूँगा. And I also heard Zerodha ka Nikhil Kamath saying that for us the unit economics of marketing, probably something like what Grow does or something like Upstox does, that never made sense to us. But still today, if I'm not wrong, it's this second player in its market share when it comes to online broking platforms. And it's still one of the most profitable businesses. Absolutely.
Which one, sorry?
Zerodha.
Zerodha.
Yeah, no funding raised. I just want to understand how do you take a decision to do word of mouth marketing in a world where everything is being marketed online? I can't imagine so many brands without having, this online marketing.
Okay. We said you got an objective. Okay. To meet that objective, you need a certain number of people using your offering. Correct? Right?
Correct.
That's a relatively straightforward sum to come to. Now, if one person needs to use my product, how many, on a steady state basis, how many people need to try my product or service? Correct? Because it's not the trial which gives me value, it is the steady state users. If for one person to be steady state use, 10 people need to try my product, how many people need to be aware of my product and proposition? Let's say 100. Okay, whatever the sums are. Now, if 100 people need to be aware of my proposition, for me to hit my 5 crore goal, what is the most effective way of getting my message to these 100 people? Can I afford it today or not? Because if you can't afford it, expecting that you will get that one person ain't going to happen. So whatever you're spending, you're wasting. Now, there are tricks you can use to get yourself there. Suppose I need to do 100 people nationally. I can say, okay, let me first go confirm this model by doing 10 people in Gurgaon, because they'll cost me less, and see if I get the right answer. Then I'll have the confidence to go get another 10 people somewhere else and another, so what people call micro market, test market, lead market. Nowadays, a lot of people do that in consumer facing products by saying, I can't go everywhere, so let me start on the internet. Correct? Right? But the match is straight. Starting from the number, my objective in terms of business, how many people do I need to use? And then it costs what it costs. Where a lot of people make a mistake is saying, oh God, it costs so much, I can't afford to spend that. So let me spend half of that, but still assume they'll get that. Somehow they will. And within this whole context, it becomes even harder, because realize that the majority of new stuff brought to the market in any category fails. It is only the minority which actually succeeds on a sustaining basis. Majority fails.
Also, I think there are some categories where word of mouth works because people look smart when they recommend those categories. So stockbroking or brokerage platforms where you're trading stocks is a way, in a rising demat and rising equity intelligence younger audience, you look smart when you tell 5 friends about this newer, far better product you're using for selecting or investing in stocks, as opposed to a new razor where there's no word of mouth. Unless brokerage, choice of brokerage platforms doesn't lead you to be intelligent in your group anymore, and everyone knows it. Right now, there's arbitrage of information, and like a Zerodha, for example, is a beautiful place for a recommendation to happen, because you look smart when you recommend it to 5 people and show them कि देखो ऐसा करता हूँ मैं, फिर मैंने यहाँ पे, like, what do you think happens in parties where people like tell कि I made 30% IRR on, or I made 4x on this investment.
Never talk about the stock they lost on.
Yeah, ever.
Never talk about that. It's like, can you imagine, Zerodha, of course, run great. But God knows how many stockbroking platforms have been launched in India in the last 10 years, which you don't even know about. Yeah. Came and gone, correct?
So there is a brag value in some categories, and you're right. It might be there for some time, and it may not be there. But that's where you have to know whether you're in the right brag value. Like, for example, I remember Gmail was an exclusive Google email service when it launched in 2004-5. Getting that invitation was a big deal, and it was a great email product at that time. So I remember showing off to like 20 friends of mine that मेरे को Gmail का access मिला, I'm using, and those 20 people waited for and now Gmail is available to everyone. But that brag value and that exclusivity, etc. For email today, if you launch a new email service, no one's going to care unless it's something really innovative, and you will do the same thing again. So for that period, at that time, if there is brag value, then word of mouth works.
And two other things. One is, don't take his word or it or my word
Yeah.
from it. Go ask your target consumer.
Yeah.
Unpeel that onion. Okay. Second is, we spent a lot of time today discussing principles, strategy, higher level stuff. Okay. All of that is worthless if you don't have outstanding execution of it. Correct? It is amazing how many things fail, not because the higher stuff was wrong, but then the execution wasn't great. At the end of the day, the person who executes the best. I remember again, there's this A.G. Lafley guy who said, we can see all these PowerPoints, we can have all these discussions, but ultimately, all of that is not seen by the consumer. Just sees the product or the brand in the market and the use. And they don't think that much. No, you don't think that much. When you go to buy something, do you intellectualize over a 84-page PowerPoint? No. Huh?
Awesome.
It's been a masterclass for us up till now to learn how marketing is done in a broader perspective. But I actually had like one question, which has been an aspiration for myself if I ever start out my venture. I always feel India's strength lies in the tier 2, tier 3 cities of this, population. In today's world, where you've worked with brands like Gillette, possibly interchangeable with the product name. So rather than saying that, today I'm going to use a razor, I might just say, हाँ ठीक है, Gillette मेरे को razor blade खरीदने जाना है. To penetrate at such a deeper level today in this country, if let's say a brand had to start out again, how do they do that organically and not, paying too much into the mechanism or digital stream and probably build out from the scratch and penetrate to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities? How would you, advise brands doing that?
Whatever you are creating to serve whomever, those necessary conditions hold. So, if you choose you want to serve tier 3 cities, the first thing remains the same. Find a proposition that better meets their needs of those people living in tier 2 cities. Make sure you have the right technology to deliver against that need. Make sure you have a cost structure which allows you to tell those people that you are now meeting the need. Then make sure that they have it available where they want it. That doesn't change. Now, the reason you hear about a lot of people opting to choose big cities and e-commerce, either as a sales channel or as a marketing channel, is because it appears, may not necessarily be so, it appears that those are easier commercial problems to solve because of the scale seems more, right? But you can do many things. I have this, actually my wife's batchmate from NID who runs a social entrepreneurship business and has been doing it for years. She's got UN participation and stuff like that. So she's become pretty big in that. She recently started a new thing with bamboo. And as I discovered in talking to her, bamboo is a little complicated in India because bamboo still gets officially tagged as a tree. So it comes under all kinds of forest regulations as opposed to cash crop regulations. Anyway, she's worked this with about 5 governments in India, state governments, and they've begun developing bamboo cultivation to increase the growth of bamboo, because apparently, which I didn't know, a large amount of Indian bamboo is imported. Uh, Now, then, what they've also done is they've partnered with certain technology being developed in certain universities, I think in the UK. So the bamboo is not ultimately meant to be used for crafts, which are then sold, but is actually converted into construction material through the technology. And then you simply supply it as a, so it's kind of a great idea which Neelam has done with this thing, where they've taken this, and it's all partnerships along the way, because it helps, obviously, development of cash crops and all the way down to the village level. So you got to pick where you think there's a need, but those are the principles. Yeah? Just because a lot of the action doesn't seem to be in class 2, class 3, doesn't mean that class 2 and class 3 is, in fact, the reason a lot of the action is not there is because it's hard. You don't get the scale, right? You got to go to 300 towns to get any meaningful scale. So I'm sorry, I don't have a magic bullet, but you got to start with, do you have something? And if you have something, let me give you an example. If you take mass FMCG, companies like Levers and things like that, I may have the numbers wrong because time has passed, but any lever product is available in about 9 or 10 million retail stores. Lever, with its wonderful, well-developed distribution system, covers about 2 million stores. That means 7 million stores are buying lever products from wholesale markets. Those guys are buying because their consumers in their villages want it. So that is a big moat. But if you can crack the need, and that's not easy.
Got it. I just had like one quick question. If today, you were in our times, probably our age, let's reverse the clock. And if you were not to take the corporate path, what would be an alternate career that you would focus on? Like for me, if I wouldn't be doing corporate today, and like after today's conversation, I think I'll contemplate about it. I probably would want to start a school where it's just about performing arts, for example, a sports school, and revolutionize the sports industry. What would that be looking like for you?
See, I often used to tell my kids this. In today's world, it does not matter what you choose to do. You can be a professional beach bum. As long as you are the best in the world at it, don't worry about material returns. They will come. So if you want to do a school for performing arts, go for it. If you're worried that then you will not be able to buy a Ferrari when you're 40, I guarantee you, if you set up the best school for performing arts in this country, you will be able to afford a Ferrari if you want by the age of 40. Now, how you become the best performing arts school in this country, I don't know. Correct? The other thing is, if you genuinely can show evidence that you have a path to becoming the best performing art school in this country, don't worry, you'll get money. But you have to genuinely show the path that you can become the best performing arts. So that, point number one, that winning proposition can be in anything.
I like this question. What if you were to start up today and you were 25 years old?
I'm a genetic babu. My father was a babu, I'm a babu. In his time, people, in his generation, people of his type joined the Indian government. In my time, they joined multinationals, either selling soap and shampoo or selling credit cards. That's if they didn't disappear to the US to do a master's.
Yes,
Yeah.
Moshi, go ahead.
Hello, sir. My name is Noshi. So my question is about marketing. So as you said that probably we are younger and we don't know much about Nirma, but we remember the Nirma campaign songs. We remember that We even remember what Ambuja Cement used to say, भैया ये दीवार टूटती क्यों नहीं? Or maybe Vico turmeric नहीं, cosmetic ये. We know all these campaigns. But if you see earlier, these campaigns has a much more effect on us. I'm not even a consumer of a cement brand, but still I know its campaign. But today, for example, we talked about the vehicles of our marketing, Instagram. If you ask me since morning, if I scroll roll, which brand struck your court, I can't say even a brand whose advertisement I didn't even remember. So what do you think? It has two parts. What's going wrong? Or maybe in today's era, I as a marketer, how can I create that impact which does not last for minutes, days, or for years?
The lovely question.
There's a negative option and a positive option as to why that's happening. And there can only be hypotheses. The negative option is two things. Number one, marketeers get tired and feel they have to change much, much before the consumer gets tired and feels they have to change. It's almost, I don't know whether it works on the annual appraisal cycle or what do I put, but people don't like putting on their appraisal cycle. I just picked up the last campaign and I kept on running it. Okay. Second part of negative is what I think I mentioned earlier. People spend much less time on the what and more on the media part. Because it's not the campaign you remember, which is important. It is Ambuja Cement kabhi nahi tootti hai. That's not a campaign, that's the idea, that's the benefit, and that's what people are looking for. The positive spin is media has become much more fragmented. Because it has become much more fragmented, it is assuming we're all doing a good job, has become much more targeted. And because it's got much more targeted, a large number of people who are not in the target audience because they're not building a house or nowhere near building a house do not get exposed to that stuff. What is your favorite brand that you use?
Mine is Levi's.
Sorry?
Levi's.
Levi's. So Levi's, you remember what they're doing? You notice it? There you go. And Levi's is a brand targeted at you. So it's possible that when you're talking this stuff, 90% of people are not in your target audience. So when you have, it's like, and in the old days, this also used to happen, when television was good and strong and you basically buy a Chaya Geet and a Hindi feature film and you're done. A big issue was diapers, Pampers, because 98, it was known that 98, 99% was spillage, was wastage. But you have to, that was the only way to get to people. So the 1% of people would remember, but the 98, 99% don't get the message anymore. That's the positive spin on this. It's probably a combination of all those three things, I think. So it's not all bad.
Thank you so much.
So, sir, I had a question. For example, I need to start a toothpaste brand tomorrow. All right. So, considering Colgate has acquired such a huge space in the consumer mindset, especially the tier 3 cities, how will I convince people to use my thing without, like you told, innovation is the key. But in the prospects of a toothpaste or something else, we can't innovate much. Like, for example, in the herbal sector, Patanjali has gained a huge popular audience, but we can't find brands other than that, like where the consumer mindset is already fixed and he or she doesn't want to switch to another product. So yeah, how to build that, please use my product apart from the ones
understood.
already established. Yes.
One, I'm not the right person to ask because I have tried to launch Crest in 3 countries and failed. Okay, including India.
What happened there?
What?
Like, how did the marketing and the distribution might of Procter not work in a category where Crest has been so successful?
Because it's not been that successful everywhere. It's got pockets. It's very, very strong in the US, where it's
North
almost
America is the
Colgate.
leader, right? Yeah.
Correct, and a couple of other countries.
But it's a great product. It's a great
It's a
product.
great product. It's a great product. Number of things. We should have started from the top, but we got seduced by scale. So started with a red box competitor.
Oh.
Correct. Number two, we made a mistake of the Indian taste requires a much stronger flavor. Crest is a much milder flavor. Yeah, so there are some basic mistakes which we did. Coming back to your question, I think in toothpaste, in the last reasonable amount of time, probably there were two things which you call as somewhat successes. One is Patanjali, okay, which, like you said, at that point in time, picked up herbal and Ayurvedic, which everyone else had ignored with the close-up and Colgate battle. So they had a meaningful idea, because if you go back in time, actually there were a number of brands which used to offer herbal. The second one, Sensodyne.
That's what I've done very well.
Which also picked up a unique idea, which was meaningful to a certain segment. Patanjali was mass price, Sensodyne very premium. Okay, I guarantee you, if you execute well, you can give me a tooth spray which I have to use once a week, but it gives me exactly the same effect as if I brushed my teeth twice a day. That would work, correct? Now the question is that possible? I don't know, but can you do it? I say I can. I know P&G has worked for the last 50 years to try and make a shampoo which really, measurably causes hair regrowth. Not been able to, okay, because some technologies are tough. But if you can crack it, yes. And if you want to go against someone like Colgate, who does whack-a-mole to everyone, okay, and not just the market leader, the generic, you have to come out with something like that, unless you can find little niche like Sensodyne has.
Again, I think it part of this creating a whole dental experience and not just a toothpaste with it.
Yeah, but it's still small. The thing with oral care is the huge category. It's 12, 13,000 crores. Colgate is an investor in our company, so we should be very careful about But frankly, I agree with you. I think, Patanjali, Dabur, Sensodyne, three very successful. And we have not even scratched the surface of oral care. We don't have an at-scale kids toothpaste, for example. For milk teeth and growing permanent teeth at the age of 8, 7, 8, 9, we don't have any toothpaste. We don't have an active toothpaste for gums. We don't have a toothpaste for diabetics. We don't have so many flavors that we could have which are more local. I think oral care is a fantastic opportunity. And you should see China, where Colgate was at 25-27% market share, is now at 6% because local companies have kind of come and really scaled. And their innovations have been either on channel or on product or the way they have marketed it or their segmentation.
Crest became market leader in the US when P&G was the first company which created fluoride, anti-cavity fluoride in toothpaste, and they had it for a while. But they got the American Dental Association stamp, and since then they've been market leaders. But their needs have developed, because then now cavity protection is considered basic.
Yeah.
Right? So then you got whiteness, gum protection, etc. Let me give you another brand creation story. I wish I remembered this. I'll try and be brief, so I don't cut into questions. You've all heard Pantene, right? I don't know whether it still is, but Pantene, not too long ago, may still be, is the world's largest shampoo. The creation of Pantene was a wonderful story. P&G developed a technology which was a 2-in-1 technology, which basically enabled cleaning ingredients and conditioning ingredients to be in the same shampoo. Right? That was first invented as P&G is a great chemistry company actually. It's not as much a marketing company as a chemistry company. That's really where its core strength lay. Now, P&G tried this on many brands over the years in the US. They had a brand called Wash and Go. They launched a brand called Wash and Go. They tried it on Rejoice and many things. Never really worked. Then, in early 80s, P&G bought Richardson Vicks, which is actually how I entered P&G because I used to work for Richardson Hindustan Limited. With this acquisition, there came a brand called Pantene. This Pantene brand was a hair tonic.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which primarily sold in France. There was a guy who was running our Australian business, I think, yeah, or maybe Korean business. They were looking to launch a shampoo. So obviously they took this latest P&G technology and they developed an idea on healthy hair. Then in the search, they said, hey, we have this brand which has got a great equity in France, hair oil, small business for hair revitalization. So they slapped the Pantene name on it. Okay? Now this was either in Korea or Australia, I forget which. Then the other country, Korea or this thing, as they expanded it, they developed, you guys may be too young to see it, a communication which to visualize healthy hair, which for years we used to call the peacock shot, which was letting the hair down and letting it bounce. All these things came together, and a decade later it became the world's largest shampoo. Correct? But that's how things often happen.
It just fits together sometimes.
Yeah. But you need to, and then all of them got right. And they failed in the beginning, you know. There are a lot of failures.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So, a very simple question. So, PNG and HUL are the two big FMCG behemoths.
No, there's also ITC, there's also Nestle, there are many.
Colgate and Reckitt.
Colgate.
No,
Our
but
investors?
I feel like PNG and HUL are the ones who are very popular for their management training programs.
Yes.
From your point of view, especially viewing them as a competitor for so many years, what makes HUL the CEO factory, according to you? Like, is it just like good branding done by them? Is it something different that they're
No,
doing?
no, timing. See, HUL has been around in India forever. PNG has been around in India for about 25, 30 years. Okay? It takes time for that to develop. Now, if you look at it actually, globally, the PNG has a group of about 100 people. The second largest number from country from which they come from, or the third largest is India. And I'm not talking about ethnic Indian. I'm talking about Indians who started in India.
This is a senior
Globally.
leadership.
Yeah. Right, about 100 people who get called every year to Cincinnati and have to listen to, correct? So I think the only difference is timing. It takes time for those people to grow. Now there are lots of also you see around mid-40s, that kind of age group of PNG who work CEOs in multiple companies around, in India also. So I don't think it's got anything to do with the marketing of them or this thing. Also, you know, when the numbers in India of lever people are just so much more, right? And I think PNG has seen and been far greater in development of Indian talents. So they're probably a much higher percentage in senior positions.
Yeah.
So the lever also has, because Indian talent which comes through all this stuff is all is every multinational, right?
Did you work with Shailesh?
Shailesh used to work for me for many years. I know him very well.
Shailesh Jejurikar is now the global chief operating officer. Is an India product.
The HR is completely down. I mean, my batchmate was global head of HR 20 years ago. A guy called Mohit Nagarath from XLRI. The current guy is also there. So everywhere. It's full of it. The guy who runs market research globally.
Nice. And for a person who's just about to start their career, like especially because of the management training programs these companies have, would you recommend a fresher should join a company like HUL or P&G to build their muscle, or should they join a startup?
It's a great question.
My opinion is plus and a minus. The plus of joining a company like a P&G or an HUL is that really strengthens your grounding. The minus is it really strengthens your grounding. It is, so to some extent, like my son now runs my wife's business, which is design home store business called Freedom Tree. Must be about 100 people. And he knew Shantanu in the US. He used to work, graduated from Yale, then worked for Bain, then worked for a startup called Shortlist here. And then he started joined and has been scaling up my wife's business. And he has had to take specific more effort to reach out to mentors, coaches. I stay away from it because the work-life cycle. And but because he never got that much of the base grounding. But it's a double-edged sword. Yeah. Especially, I know there's a saying, you know, never hire a ex-P&G person direct from P&G. Let the ex-P&G person work somewhere else, then hire.
Well, it's very hard to leave organizations like P&G. It's very hard. Or McKinsey. You stay there for 6-7 years, then it's extremely difficult to leave.
But P&G is not like that, because P&G has a very sharp pyramid. Okay, so brand manager, which is something you would reach after about 6-7 years, 50% of the people have left. And simply because the pyramid is that sharp, and they've always historically forced the pyramid.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I always felt P&G was a place where people could stay and build career.
The issue is everyone who you meet who's in P&G has been in P&G from day one.
Because they don't hire from outside.
Correct. So you meet anyone and
They're a lifer.
half the time years they've been working, they've been in P&G if they're still in P&G.
I always felt like it was it became too comfortable to stay, and then leaving just did not make any sense anymore. Financially or otherwise.
They move you on. They move you on.
Thank you.
Okay.
Shantanu,
Thank you
this has been
guys,
such a pleasure.
It's fun.
Thank you so much.